Aspe, should we begin while Allison is making her way out here?
Yeah, I would like to hear your day's events. And, I was watching about 6 live feeds last night and seeing what was going on, but it's never the same until someone who was there starts telling you.
I think that, I'm going to give my own personal opinion. I think that, for once I'm starting to feel that the opposition is on point. I do have a sense that they have a plan in place, and that plan involves, the paralyzation of the city and especially the law enforcement, the police forces. We saw a lot of that today. I think they will be working to ramp up that capacity, and we saw that the police today were very heavy-handed, and probably unfortunately, we're gonna see more of that. I personally witnessed many sort of, instances of police brutality, but I think this is we're hearing the opposition say that this is going to be a watershed week. Especially the date of June 3rd is being mentioned as the watershed day, and different people that I talked to also sort of confirm that this is there are different things that are coalescing in place, but unfortunately the opposition is not so good at maybe openly communicating it. For instance, in 2018. One of the successes, I think, of Nikol pashinyan was that everything that he did, he communicated with the people, and that helped in terms of reducing attrition and getting commitment from people for civil disobedience. But yeah, the day started, I guess, at 11 o'clock. The main avenue of action was the third government building on Arami Street, and there was a sizable crowd. I don't know. Again, I don't want to t-shirt sizing. If it was probably medium-sized crowd. I don't want to go into numbers specifically, but it started off with just sort of blocking the front entrance. In the past, that building has been surrounded for a couple hours and completely blockaded. But in this case, the protesters simply wanted to go inside and talk to the ministers who have key positions there and demand for them to state their position. And this is really important because of what's going to transpire this week, which is the meeting for demarcation and delimitation. And in that building that the opposition targeted, at least two of the people who are on that committee are in that building. Maybe this is also separate from it, but I also shared on my Twitter timeline an urgent plea from Edgar Ghazarian, who we heard last week. He former ambassador to Poland and former chief of staff at the Constitutional Court, and he believes that if Armenia does go through with this meeting in Moscow for delimitation and demarcation, the first priority that Azerbaijan will set will be the common border between Armenia and Artsakh in the Goris, and that will automatically, as soon as the minutes of that meeting are finalized and an announcement is made, he fears that Azerbaijan will put border posts right on there, just like it did with the Goris-Kalpan highway, and eventually they will be not manned. Maybe they'll be just flags, and then they'll be manned, and then they'll be, you can go through during only the day because it's dangerous at night, then only through Russian escort, and then finally they'll just sort of close it off completely. And I think that's sort of a realistic scenario, and I think that in any case, in conjunction with, this is my own opinion, this is not the, I don't know if this, but I think it's a good idea that in conjunction with paralyzing the law enforcement structures, to approach these people and put pressure on them to either resign or to explain their position. Maybe some of them really want to become part of Turkey. I don't know. Maybe they have Turkish blood. Maybe, I don't know, whatever reason. But it's good to have them on record. And, we saw a little bit of that last week, I believe, when they went into the foreign ministry and they talked to two deputy foreign ministers, and one of whom actually did say that Artsakh will never be part of Azerbaijan, although, like, after a lot of pressuring. But even I think getting people to on record saying something like that is important.
Well, and Hovig, the other thing is that they can be on record saying that the most important thing is their vote, right?
Yeah. And the second part of the day, at 5 p.m., there was a hearing for Avetik Chalabian.
For what?
Avetik Chalabian, one of the political prisoners, and they're appealing the decision for the judge to detain him for, I believe, 1 month or 2 months. 2 months, actually. Hey guys, sorry, we just have more company, but we're trying to move to a bigger table. Yeah. So Avetik Chalabian, just to brief you, he was detained for 2 months. And the charge that he was sort of charged with is essentially like organizing protests for money, which is, many people are saying it's BS. And what's interesting is that the article under which he's charged with, the clause is going to expire, in July 1st. So that clause, which is one, of the Armenian Criminal Code 163, Article 163.2, point 3, Part 2, is going to expire in a month, or less than, in a little bit more than a month, and they still decided to charge him on that, and not just charge him on that, but detain him for 2 months. So when his detention is over, that article will already be expired. Today was a hearing to appeal the decision to detain him, and it was delayed until, it was continued until tomorrow. So tomorrow there will be the continuation of that hearing. But honestly, I don't know how it'll go, but by the time Avetik Chalabian finishes his detention, the law will be expired. And one of the arguments that was used today by Chalabian's lawyers was exactly that. And the prosecution said, well, I heard some rumor that there's going to be a new law in its place. So therefore, he shouldn't be released. But obviously, I'm not a lawyer, but it's explained to me that one of the most important things and reasons for detaining people is intent to either flee, intent to interfere with the case, and none of that, or maybe he was caught right while doing the thing, right? During the act, and none of those are true. So this is completely, I believe, and I think the legal team is arguing this is unlawful. And unfortunately, this is, the reality of Armenian law enforcement today. And especially with Pashinyan, I think there is a heavy focus and heavy emphasis on abusing that part of the law, which allows them to detain people. And they specifically cherry pick parts of the criminal code that carry a heavier sentence, which would allow them to actually do the detention. Because if the max at the jail time that one can serve is a month, then it doesn't make sense to detain someone for 2 months, right? So they have to find a nice juicy sentence, such as what with the Gyumri boys, it was the hooliganism. So instead of assault,
the thing is, if they're going to rely on the law coming into effect on July 1st, that might release him, that's still justice delayed, right?
And that's all Pashinyan wants. That he wants as many people in jail as possible, because Chalabian naturally and organically brings people to the street, and it's quite convenient when you have independent leaders in behind bars. Then you can paint and say, oh well, only the Dashnaks and the Hak are out here. So yeah.
get into our guests. So we have some exciting guests with us today. So we have two members of the ARF Youth who are going to talk to us a little bit about some civil disobedience actions they've taken this week, and also about the letter of solidarity that they received from, I believe it's the International Union of Socialist Youth. And also, do you want to introduce? Fantastic. Okay. So just turn down your volume. Okay, guys. So first of all, perhaps you could introduce yourself. Each tell us about your role and or in the organization, or what you do in Yerevan and generally, and then we can get into the civil disobedience actions.
Thank you very much. My name is Tsoghig Arshak. I'm a repatriate.
I'm sorry, we're not catching that.
My name is Tsoghig Arshak. Is it better?
Can you hear us, Arshak? Aspet?
You're breaking up, Allison.
I'm breaking up too?
Yeah. Okay. And so the two times that your guest said her name, we didn't catch it, or at least I didn't catch it. Maybe my internet is bad for all I know, but I think it's yours.
No, I don't know. Okay, let's try this again. So.
Yeah.
So you can hear us now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So my name is Tsoghig Arshak. I'm a repatriate. I live in Armenia for about 9 years now. And I'm from Kesab, Syria. That's interesting for many people. I'm an architect in profession. I have been a member of ARF Youth for maybe 8 years now, and I'm a member of ARF also. Currently, I'm one of the personnel responsible for the ARF Youth Office in Yerevan, which organizes or tries to come together the work the ARF Youth Global does in Armenia and Artsakh. So yeah, and my comrade.
Nice to meet you all. It's a pleasure being here. My name is Arshak and I'm a repatriate as well from Los Angeles, California. I've been living here in Armenia with my family. It's been almost 16 years, if not more, approximately, since 2006. So again, I represent the ARF Youth Office in more detail. Just to figure out the role of the Youth Office, I would like to mention that it's the main executive office that coordinates all the work of AYF Global around the world. So we have approximately 30 in 30 different countries. We have our youth and student organizations and also juniors. And the Youth Office is the main office that directs and forms a general roadmap and a strategy for the upcoming years that we have to struggle together in terms of different issues. So by saying that, I wanna come to Alison's second question about IUSY. The IUSY is the International Union for Socialist Youth. IUSY is one of the strongest and one of the largest international youth organization in the world, which has over 150 different youth organizations from around 100 different countries. And IUSY recently published a statement where it calls for solidarity, standing by the protesters in Yerevan of the resistance movement, and specifically mentioned as well the ARF youth members that have been detained for almost 2 weeks. The AYF, the ARF Youth, is a full member of IUSY, It's been almost 2 decades. And the statement, if I conclude some points with the statement, what the IUSY was addressing, first it condemned the brutal use of force and the disproportionate use of force by the police, and calls on the Armenian government to maintain all the rights of the citizens in Armenia, of the protesters, and they should be the first to defend those rights, so that they'll be able to practice to the fullest. And it is very important to mention that within the statement, the IUSY is saying that we are following the developments in Armenia very closely, mentioning that the fact that during the 2021 elections, the Prime Minister and his political team came to power, came to office with the promise of a just resolution to the Artsakh conflict, and that they will consider the will of the people during the resolution as well. And now the people have found that the promise has been unfortunately broken. So these are one of the main points that I wanted to highlight of the content that the statement was published by. Thank you.
Fantastic. And did you guys, so we talked about the statement, and then perhaps we could talk about, since you brought up the detainees who have been held for 2 weeks now, can you talk about circumstances, if they've been charged with anything, or on what legal basis they're being held, and what you guys are trying to do to raise awareness and how we can help? Either one of you.
So about the charges, so our comrades have been charged on the Criminal Code 258, the third point of the 258 Criminal Code, which is the code of hooliganism. And so you kind of have trouble with pronunciating it. So, which preliminary, they're going to be detained for 2 months until their trial. But the circumstances that the Gyumri events took place was very uncommon, because actually very common at the same time, because we've seen organized events like that a lot of times during the latest month of the resistance movement. So the so-called attack on the elderly in Gyumri was organized. And why do we say that? Because if we point out facts if we mention a couple of circumstances, we can say that the elderly weren't Gyumretis. They don't live in Gyumri. They're not registered in Gyumri. They're not residents of Gyumri whatsoever. So I don't know from where they found them and brought them, and they were
suddenly had eggs in their hands.
They had suddenly eggs and rocks in their hands that they threw on our cars, unfortunately, because we had a car rally into Gyumri, and I can say that they were waiting. It was like that. They were waiting until the car rally passed by them, and then they started attacking the cars. They broke a couple of windows, rocks and eggs. We have all the footage, and the footage has been published by the opposition, by the movement. So circumstances like this we can fully understand that they have been set up, and because of that, we can also say that the detainment is illegal whatsoever.
If I may just ask one thing, my understanding of the hooliganism charge is that it requires no victim as well. So when you assault someone, for instance, right, it requires someone to file a complaint that, hey, I've been assaulted. In the case of hooliganism, the law enforcement can decide that, hey, you're causing a disturbance, and thus, charge you. Do you know if there have been any victims recognized in this case, or is it just like witnesses, but no victims?
I think the so-called victims, haven't even pressed charges whatsoever. Right. So that's one absurd case that we can fact that we can take into consideration. And the charges during the videos that we see, the police says, for example, they've been hitting, they've been cussing out the elderly, but during even in the video, there is no cussing mentioned out loud that is hearable. So, and you can see one of the activists pulling the elderly's chain because the elderly was about to actually assault one of the activists. So if that's what they're calling if that's the reason why they're being charged, then I don't know what to say about that.
Right.
I just want to say something about our Ungerner, which are detained. I want people to know these people. These people are young, young individuals that participated in the 2016 war, 4-day war, and participated in the 44, maybe 50 or 55 days in the post. They stayed overtime after the November 9th agreement. So
because they weren't ready to leave their posts whatsoever, and they were one of the few voluntaries that weren't going to leave their posts until they had to. They actually brought them down, unfortunately.
Yeah. So these all the ones that are detained
all of them
were all veterans of kind of the last holdouts of the war.
And before that, they were activists in many other movements that took place in Yerevan, Electric Yerevan, for example. They participated in that as well. The 100 Dirham movement. They are all part of AYF Armenia, and they have been almost all their lives, actively participating in every civic movement that took place in Yerevan in the past decade. And their character, they're trying to smudge that character, belittle them, and try to bring in the front line these images of them beating elderly people. This is the character of this government, because they don't. Today we witnessed that they don't have the courage to face the people, to talk to them, to talk to the parliamentary members, and just say what they think. I don't know what's the problem. They don't know what they think, or they're obligated to think in some way that they're not okay with. They just can't say it out loud. I don't know. Maybe they're oppressing them too, the people that are working in the government. But this, this kind of behavior, trying to belittle our comrades and try to represent them in ways that they're not, is not gonna work, because everybody knows their history, what they have done for this country, and these things are not just going to be erased, Yeah, and now
how many of them are there
in
jail?
5.
Detained.
Yeah,
five detainees.
5 detainees. Yeah.
But there are a lot that have been charged as suspects too, that have been oftenly brought to questioning to find out the facts of the incident. And I want to add a couple of details about the movement in general. That going to regions, we need to bring awareness of the cause that the movement stands for, not only in Yerevan but everywhere, even in diaspora, because this is a pan-national movement. Because the issue of this movement, the main goal, is the preservation of the sovereignty of Armenia, the Republic of Armenia, is the practice of through the practice of the self-determination of the Artsakh people, the final and just resolution, the independence, the recognition of the international recognition of the independence of Artsakh Republic as well. This is a national cause. It's not a cause for a party. It's not just only a party. It's not a cause for a sector of the society. Is a pan-national cause that everyone has to understand, and also understand the role that the government today, in which the government today plays, that is not defending the interests of our nation whatsoever. So I would like to underline this fact, and with this acknowledgement, all our compatriots in Armenia, Artsakh, or even in the diaspora have to understand and make their stance. By saying this, I would like to remind you that only 2 days ago, on May 28th, the Artsakh people stood up and joined the resistance movement that has been taking place in Yerevan. They had their in the Renaissance Square. There were approximately more than 15 to 20,000 compatriots that had come, and for Artsakh, that is a critical amount of people, because the Artsakh population doesn't even reach 100,000 today. So approximately 20% of the country had stood up, and the reason that it was only 20% because everyone is in Stepanakert, the capital of Artsakh, and plus the social economic situation in Artsakh is very, very post-war. Artsakh is very crucial as well.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to actually ask about that, but maybe now we can move to, your recent actions of civil disobedience, and what's their importance. For example, maybe you guys can take it from here and talk about some of the recent acts of civil disobedience that you guys have undertaken and why.
So we've been in the streets of Yerevan for approximately more than a month now, and mainly the civic disobediences that are going on are closing the roads or marching the streets with our compatriots and trying to bring awareness, call to the international media outlets as well for their festival. And the agenda of the festival was very controversial for us, and mainly because they're trying to show some reality that is not the true reality of Armenia. They're not reporting constantly about the movement. They're belittling the movement every chance they get, and they are, stuck in this narrative that are comparing numbers. 10,000 have marched, 20,000 have marched, and trying to minimize the cause and belittle it. Despite from that, the festival also had panels and panelists that are known to be defenders of the government standing today.
Just to remind you guys, we are here with two members of the ARF Youth in Yerevan, Tsoghig and Arshak, correct? And just to catch you guys up, they're talking about civil disobedience movements for anyone who just joined.
Yeah, so we went with some of our friends to attend the panel discussion that was going on about political narratives. And panelists, some of them are known pro-Nikol activists that protect this regime with every chance they get and every possible way they can, sometimes unreasonable methods. Some of them are professors, but they use that platform also to do propaganda about Nikol and his regime and how they try to create this democratic situation in Armenia. But the reality is much more different and actually is opposite of that. And we were there to say that the reality in Armenia is that tens of thousands of people are marching the streets, and you have to report that. If you like it or not, you have to report about this, because this is what media must do. It must present the truth as it is. And if they call themselves independent media, which they're far from being an independent media outlet, they're not an independent media outlet. They must show the two sides of the story, but they choose to show the part that they want. And the main messages that we wanted to say are that the narrative is that Artsakh will never be part of Azerbaijan. It has never been and will never be. And this is something that is not, a dream that we have. This is the reality. It has never been part of Azerbaijan. People confuse this stuff, Azerbaijan has never been part of today's Azerbaijan. So this is a fact and will never be, because it has their legal basis for this argument, the referendum and the will of the people of Artsakh. So this is a fact, and people must, some of them were making comments, by the way, when we were saying this stuff, that they're still believing in this stuff. That this is not a belief, this is a fact. This is something that is the reality, the truth. If you don't want to sit in front of the truth and face it, it's your problem. If you are serving another alliance's agenda, that's your problem. This is the narrative of the Armenian people. Artsakh has always been Armenian and will always be Armenian. And the second one is that Pashinyan has lost his what?
His mandate?
Yeah, his mandate. He lost his mandate to speak about for the Armenian people, because as Arshak said, in 2021, he promised that he would solve or try to solve the Artsakh conflict so that it would be in coherence with the will of the Armenian people. But the Armenian people don't want this. They don't want peace with Azerbaijan, and we all know peace with Azerbaijan, what it means. It means genocide for Artsakh Armenians. And this is the main two messages that we wanted to say. And of course, when we talk about democracy in such organized and high-class conferences, but when before a week, opposition parliamentary members were banned from entering a conference about democracy. This is absurd. I mean, this is
a conference attended by the U.S. ambassador and other dignitaries.
Yeah, U.S. and EU ambassadors. So this is very hypocritical, and these media outlets must also know that each and everything that they publish, we're not forgetting those. And this is referring the map of Armenia that they published without the region of Syunik in 2019. And now they have deleted that photo from their website. But this is not a justification. They are doing... So yeah, everything that they do, that they published, is gonna haunt them, basically. And they must get used to being called out for being not worthy of the virtues that the media outlet must have, which is reporting the truth and also giving the right to doubt. You know, if you doubt the movement, ask questions, be curious, but you don't spread lies about it, etc.
What was Sorry,
do you want to take some questions?
Yeah, we'll take some questions, but let me just start with mine. What was some of the reaction when you were to the EVN, was it Media Fest? Did the panelists react at all, or did you sort of have any exchange with them?
Actually, none of them, answered in some way. They were some of them were laughing at us, and some of them were saying, they are naive young people just believing this stuff is true, just like I said. But some of them were, they had this look of, okay, this is good, people are talking about this stuff too. I saw some reactions in some people's faces, but nobody joined our voices when we were saying Artsakh. This is the problem. Nobody joined, and nobody, clapped for Artsakh, for example. This is the problem. And I'm not saying that those people don't love Armenia or Artsakh. But if you're not being the voice of Armenia or Artsakh, well, I don't know what that love is doing. It's not doing. It's doing harm more than good. You have to stand up for the homeland. You have to be true to yourself, to your beliefs, to what you do. They were all journalists, photographers who also went during the war, photographed in Artsakh and etc. But why did they behave that way? I don't know why. Are they scared? I don't know what they are scared from. Are they scared to be alone? They're not alone. A lot of people have. We were there. We had that, belief. They could have joined us, but nobody joined. Is it not popular enough for them? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't.
Yes, of course.
I just want to add about our recent actions of civil disobedience that we started about a week ago, and today we went to similar action. So we started surrounding different state institutions, government buildings, ministries, and the reason of that is the following. So the opposition and the movement have formed a declaration of some sort, a statement that has to be published on behalf of the National Assembly of Armenia, if the majority, of course, signs under that, which we expect them not to, unfortunately. But that special sitting of the National Assembly is going to take place on the 3rd of June. The ministries and trying to MPs, member of parliaments, need to go inside and present the points of the state ministers themselves for them to answer. Do they agree on the terms of the statements or no? Because the points on the statements are very clear. Around 6 different points regarding the nationally recognized, the independence of Artsakh, etc., etc. So, and that Artsakh will never be a part of Azerbaijan. So that for the society over here in Armenia will be clear that this government does not want Artsakh Armenian and is not intended to have Artsakh Armenian. In fact, their intentions are the opposite. So this is going to be the final point where we prove to the society that this is their plan. They do not protect the national interests of Armenia. They do not protect the vital national interests of Armenia. This is an existential issue. This is an issue of dignity, integrity, and as I said, it's an existential issue for our nation. So we are going to continue our civil disobedience actions until the end, until the victorious end of this resistance movement.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to get them on the record, to get the government on the record as to what exactly they're doing. Because one of our guests actually talked about, he's a negotiations expert, talked about the slow boiling frog strategy, where you slowly turn up the heat on the frog until he's boiled and he can't get out. And that's kind of the situation we're in. Does anyone have any question from the audience? Do you guys feel like you've said what you wanted to say? Is there anything you want to add in case I don't want to take all your night? Or you're welcome to stay with us in the conversation. We'll be happy to have you.
According to the questions, I think we've answered them.
Yeah.
So if there are anything else we can provide the information, why not?
Yeah.
Let's go to Rock and answer the questions.
Yeah.
And there'll be, if you guys have time, stay with us, we'll have some discussion.
No, it's totally up to you. Whenever you guys need to get going, we're just now going to have an open conversation about kind of the day's events and talk about the police brutality and all that transpired. But thank you guys so much for your time and about what you guys are up to, and also for just raising the profile of the detainees of the ARF. This is something that's very near and dear to our heart. On Groong, we've been trying to highlight how much repression there's been. We had on Avadik Shalabian actually a week before he was arrested. We I think we had on Mika also. Mika Badalian, before he was arrested. Many of our guests have been detained, so good luck to you.
Allison, I guess anybody who comes on,
We're actually waiting.
comes on our show gets arrested.
What are you doing wrong, guys? What are you doing wrong? You haven't been detained. Asped, yeah. What did you say, Asped?
I said anybody who comes on our show gets arrested.
I want to say that one of the detainees from our friends, Gor Sargsyan, actually he has been victim of political persecution for a while now, because in 2019 when AYF Armenia started its protests against the education minister Arai Karuchunyan. In that period, when they were extreme protests against the educational system and educational criteria of the educational system, and the protests that were held by AYF Armenia. In that time, Gor Sargsyan was cut off by his work because of his political views. and he was
fired.
Yeah, he was fired, and he was unemployed for maybe certain amount of time.
May I ask if he was in the public or private sector?
Private sector.
Yeah.
But he was obviously laid down from his job because of his political views. And after that, in the period of the coronavirus, these 5 of the young men that are detained right now were the organizers of a relief program that the ARF Armenia organized, and it provided 1 week of food for
our compatriots.
Yeah,
Tsoghig, I have a question from the field.
Compatriots in the regions. So we
During
went
the COVID era.
during the COVID in 2019. So I just want to say that these guys, they have been persecuted for their political beliefs for a while now. This is not something new for them, and they are not, frustrated or angry about it, because they know what they are fighting for. They know that the boycott is just boycott. So the struggle is a true struggle, a righteous one, and they're not at all,
Discouraged?
Yeah. Okay, it's actually very good.
Amazing.
Well, let me see if I can invite Rafa to talk. Rafa, are you there?
Hello, yeah. Hi, everyone.
Hey, thanks for joining. I wanted to ping you on a couple of things, I guess. The day's events, maybe, and an update from your perspective of how things are going, and also this issue that we just talked about regarding numbers, estimates, and things like that. I'm not pursuing a number. I'm just kind of trying to understand why there are so many issues getting numbers.
To answer the question, the National Security Service of Armenia, which is the NSS, in other words, the CIA or KGB, whatever you want to call it, is the party which usually counts protests, and they report it to the Prime Minister or President, and they issue a number from time to time. They usually issue a number. If there's a protest for 1 week, they would issue, let's say, at least a number or two. Okay. In this case, the NSS has not issued any numbers to the public. I'm guessing that that is done due to something specific, which I will mention now. And what we're seeing is an NGO which is funded, which is one of the best funded NGOs. I mean, if I tell you that this NGO gets around 500,000, that would probably be a conservative estimate. This NGO gets, let's say, at worst circumstance, around 500,000 from the George Soros Foundation. You can just go to OSF Armenia and search the grants list and look for Union of Informed Citizens, and you would see their funding.
Okay.
So this NGO is the one which is taking drone shots, and they're usually taking drone shots right before the protest starts, or or even the couple of times they posted straight like drone shots from another day or from another time, or like, for example, if the protest starts at 7, they post one from 4, let's say. So there, and what's happening is those people who work for media outlets which have funding from the same source, or they're neoliberals or globalists or leftists, whatever you want to call them, or like supporters of Pashinyan, they're taking the drone shots of Union of Informed Citizens and reciprocating it, okay, through their accounts. So what's happening is this one, which misrepresents the situation, is being used as the main source for counting. So what happens is the protest, when they start at 7, I'm usually there at 7, and at 7:30 even, there are more people. At 8, there are more people. But when the march starts, let's say 8:30, like when we're walking in these streets, more and more people join. Okay, the protest, like it's like 3 times bigger, 4 times bigger. So they don't take any drone shots from those times. They just just want to show a small number, which people like Nerses Kopalian and all those people, they just share it and draw an analysis on it. It's like and it's like an ostrich, you're hiding your head under the soil.
I think that this issue of counting the number of people in an effort to prove, whether you got the same amount of people or even more or less than 2018 is just like a fake agenda, and it's not even worth being addressed to address. I think there are a sufficient number of people on the streets, and everyone is going to manipulate numbers. If you can manipulate, the Lincoln Memorial, population and people who are there, depending on what angle you take a shot, you take the image from. The same can be done here. So, I think that in terms of rough order of magnitude, there are a lot of people on the street, and the fact that you have been able to, the 2018 so-called revolution took, place over a period of 10 days, whereas this has been going on for a month, and there's a solid core of people who are committed, who are basically in it life or death, and they're not going away. So that's, I think, more impressive than a week-long event where people were partying on the streets and eating chorovat and showing themselves off, or whatever. So I think that needs to be taken into account as well.
Rafa?
Yeah, I'm here. So if you want numbers, like based on what I saw, I'm pretty sure we reached 70K at like a couple of times. I think we reached 70K, maybe more.
Wow.
50K, 40K, a lot of times. I think that's an easy guess for me.
So to me, a little earlier, the gentleman mentioned May 9 as a very large rally. Of course, I was watching, but I thought May 28 was even larger.
May 9 was, look, there were at least 3 or 4 ones which I was like kind of, I had a hard time to say which one was the larger. May 28 was very large. May 9 was huge.
Yeah.
April 25 was huge. May, I think 1 also was huge. There were like at least 3, 4, 5 very huge rallies.
Okay. What's your impression of the intensity of the movement?
It's ongoing. What I can say is it's ongoing. Today, definitely the intensity was up a notch or 2.
Yeah.
Because we saw what we saw. We saw the police, brutal police violence.
Rafa, what amazes me is that the police is so many people deep and across the span of the region. I mean, there are literally hundreds of Red Berets and hundreds of those black uniformed policemen. I don't know exactly. I guess those are the NSS people or something. It's just a huge amount of money that is being spent by the government to put the protesters down.
I think the government took its time and received external advice. Sometimes I also feel that they're getting external command. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not speculating at this point. But the police forces are extremely indoctrinated to fight this movement. I don't know what's more.
Let me just say, before we say indoctrinated, they are very well paid, so they're protecting their paychecks, I think. Whether they believe or not.
Well, I don't know.
On that note, I just actually wanted to bring one example. There are different types of berets. There's red beret. There's the black uniform. Like there's so I think this would. So there's at least 3 different kinds. There's a khaki uniform. There's the black, and then there's a khaki with the red berets. But the black ones are the new U.S. embassy supported and trained police force. They have all these like new, gloves, that are like expensive gloves that
Hovig, are
have.
those the people who are trained by the Kansas National Guard?
I don't know about Kansas National Guard, but I know
No, I
that.
don't think so. No, no.
Yeah, but like just I posted a video of Levon Kochayan being arrested, and you could see the regular cops that would have the green khaki uniforms. They're carrying Levon, dragging him, but then there's this black uniform guy who seems he's acting like very privileged, like he's sort of above the others, and he tries to go and twist Levon Kochayan's hand and hurt him, and then they pull him away, and he sort of does that again. He basically runs around them and tries to go and sort of he was kept attacking Kochayan, and you could I talked to a lot of people who got arrested, and they're saying even within these different classes of police, there's tension and disagreement. So some feel that they're like better than others, and some are more persistent or vigilant for whatever reason. They want to act like they want to show off that they're doing a very good job, which is very interesting.
Yeah. On the note about support from the West, let's remember that both Lynn Tracy and Victorine basically stated their support for the government during these protests. They came out and made statements about that.
Yeah, like and the classical reference is he may be a son of a bitch, but he's our son of a bitch.
Yeah,
which
exactly.
I believe it was in reference to Nicaragua's leader, if I remember correctly. Anyway,
right. Let me just say, a couple of days ago, I posted this on Groong as a comment. The NSS has been given another almost 8% raise. They got about $9.5 million for the year, and just like in the past week, they got another $6.5 million. And just before that, they had got another 750,000, I think, or something like that. All this money is going for this extra funding towards the police versus the protesters.
And one thing that I think is worth mentioning, and this is a sensitive issue, but our border positions are still in very blatant, like they're they're just people are describing them to me as people are still living in tents. People are not; these are not very well defended positions. And the death we had yesterday, I'm going by second-hand information, so I'm sorry if this is incorrect, but apparently the soldier was shot in the leg, and he bled to death in the course of 7 hours because the position where he was at didn't have the adequate supplies to, whether it's blood transfusion capabilities or just extra blood. And then, in Sunik itself, I believe he died in Yerevan eventually when they flew him over.
That's still criminal negligence.
Yeah, but they have no problem raising the salaries of the police and the security forces that are guarding Nikol.
Right. All of the defense budget got a boost of about 10% in 22, and the budget for the NSS went up 22% over to last year. So you can see where the priorities of this government are as far as whatever they call defense. It's basically what I call the Velvet Revolutionary Guard Corps, basically. Anyway, go ahead, Hovig. Rafa, continue.
We're waiting for June 3. I don't know if there's anything scheduled. The opposition has called for a meeting of the National Assembly. I don't know if the wording was kind of off, but like was Ishkan Saratalian saying that it's going to be a very decisive day, or was it written that way, which made me understand? What do you think, Ovi? Do you have anything to say?
Look, I think that we are one of the problems that I think it's valid criticism for this opposition is that they have not been very open. And I spoke about this a little bit in the beginning. They have not been very clear about their goals. But talking to different people about the date of June 3, about this week in general, I really feel that there is a plan by the opposition. And I don't know the full details, but I think that they really will depend on the number of people on the street during the daytime, and it will involve essentially basically paralyzing the police forces, and they need a strong turnout during the week. But we have heard repeatedly that June 3 will be the watershed moment for everyone and to understand what side they're on. And I don't interpret it as like on June 4th they were gonna, if they don't get enough support, then they're gonna sort of give up. But at the same time, I'm hoping that we will learn more maybe in the next few days what the plans really are. But I think that definitely will involve more of what we saw today, and basically forcing people to take a position on the issue of Artsakh and all, Turkey and all those 7 points that are in the draft announcement that they started circulating. But we've also seen that uh, the government, the Nikol Pashinyan's government, has not been. I think they stated that they will not participate in the parliament session, which means that officially it will not happen. So I don't think that parliament session in of itself is what we're waiting for, but I think that is part of what needs to happen, and then the opposition basically will take action based either like basically around the same time or afterwards based on the response from the government.
Okay. Any listener comments and questions for the team? No questions. Okay, you guys. All right. So we've been on for quite a bit of time. I think maybe we should let you go home.
Sure.
Ovi, Allison.
All right. Well, then in that case, if there are no questions, then
that was great.
We'll drop off.
If the guys are with you still, thank them for us. It was great to hear exactly what they had to say. Really proud of them for being in Artsakh on May 28th. We'll do everything we can to keep that as part of Hayastan.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining, and thanks for our guests.
Thank you, Rafa. Appreciate it.
Thank you all for joining. And please,
bye, everyone.
If there was any interesting points or quotes, please tweet it out so we spread.